I've been thinking a lot lately about like this era because I kind of feel like times were simpler. So this era, shows were different back then. This was pre-streaming, pre-everything. I'm gonna show y'all what kind of shows we're talking about.
Oh, I was here. Okay, I was here for this.
And this is 2014. This is the beginning. The tail end you were probably even more around for. So I put top 8 because it gets a little incesty in the top 10. So I was just like, let me not.
It's already incesty.
No, it's not. Where? Oh, freak. Damn it. So you see we got Johnlock, Destiel, Sterek, Larry, Wincest, Merthur, Drarry, Stony. Wow, I ate that. And then it's mostly the same the next year, except now we have Stucky. Oh, good. Oh, good. Because that's like 90% of this presentation.
Yes! I win.
I guess Wincest is still there.
But Destiel's up there.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on. Everything was in the span of these 3 years. Like, every good ship.
That's wild.
And then in 2016, it's the exact same. So, you may have noticed something. Sorry.
Yeah.
But it's not the golden age because there's no people of color. It's just like, that's just how it was back then.
Yeah.
It was a different time, okay? It was 10 years ago.
Even in TV shows, there weren't that much.
That's what I'm saying.
POC,
it's not like...
So it's like, we didn't have anything to work with.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it's not like we were ignoring... And then this is also, like, even, like, Asian BL stuff.
Yes.
So this was the era where everything was not canon and everyone was just, like, making shit up. And we're going to talk about that later, too. But, like, Sodus was, like, is widely known as, like, the first big Thai BL. It was before...
Oh, okay.
Did you ever watch Together the series?
No.
That was, like, the second really big one. But, like, Sodus kind of started the trend. It was so big because it was, like, the first of its kind. And obviously, I didn't know about Sodus back then. I watched Yuri on Ice, but I didn't know it was BL. I never called it BL. I never called it... I'd heard the term yaoi, but yaoi back then was, like, a cringe term. Even though it's kind of come back into fashion, we're kind of reclaiming the term yaoi. I feel like people were acting cringier back then.
They were.
And, like, nobody really cared. It was kind of this community. There was no infighting. There was, but there wasn't.
There was no infighting. I think that's what you mean. Because then
like,
we outside of the community, cringe as fuck.
Right, it was like we were all against the evil normies. Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
So, like, you know, Potterheads get your wand.
That was cool
supernatural
within all of the nerds.
Right.
All of the nerds found it cool, but now nerds, it's nerd against nerd.
Right, nerd versus nerd. Exactly, we figured that.
Nerd on nerd violence.
Exactly. And then the second point about why this era is so different from now is that, like, you knew the ship before the show. Like, people thought Destiel was a guy. Nowadays, there's still big yaoi ships, but it's like, everyone's talking about Arcane, and then maybe 10% of that conversation is about Javik. Back then, it'd be like, I didn't even know what show Sterek was from, but I knew Sterek. You know what I mean? Yes! Like, it was so big. That's all anyone talked about.
Oh.
And it's mostly maybe because the contents that they're from are kind of bad. Like, that wasn't the case with, like, Stucky. Like, people were like, the MCU and also Stucky. But with Supernatural, it was like, the only good thing about Supernatural is the idea that these guys might be dating, you know? And so, like, they were big, and they would stick around for a while. Like, you saw all 3 years, it was the same ships. Yeah. Nowadays, you just saw the AO3 stats. They came out, like, yesterday. No. Like, the first 3 ships are from, like, 911. I have never heard of that. Right. And everybody else hated us, which is like what we were saying, like everybody hated us, but there was no infighting. So it was like a community. It was like a real community. Everyone's just like, we're all stupid and weird and we're all cringe.
We all have
everybody hates us.
Acne.
So like, because nothing was canon, when you give us nothing, we make stuff up. And then the stuff that people made up back then was like really, really good.
Oh my God.
It was so good.
So good.
For like no
reason.
reason.
That quality ever again.
Literally, like I've been chasing the high of some of those fics my entire life.
Snaps to that, snaps to that.
Okay, so we're just gonna go through them one by one. Because each of them are, like, pretty unique, in my opinion. It's the most fics ever on AO3. I saw someone say that Ineffable Husbands from Good Omens just hit, like, 30,000, and they're like, whoa, that's crazy! That's an insane amount! Good job, team! I'm like, please.
Bitch, please.
You will never beat Destiel. Oh, yeah, I wanted to say at what time this was all happening.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of the 2014-2016 era, they weren't really talking about what was currently airing. They were kind of talking about, like, the season 4 through 8 stuff. Because season 8 was 2013, which kind of surprised me. And, like, I specifically remember that seasons 9 through 12, they, like, purposefully made it so Dean and Cass don't talk. So, yeah, fics, I said 4 out of 5 stars because there are some really good ones. Because, once again, there's 100,000, which is an insane amount.
There has to be a good one.
Right, like there are good, but I feel like in general they're pretty mid, and there's a lot of AU, which doesn't really make sense to me. Like, I'm going to talk about AUs in this presentation, but I'm going to use the term as if, like, non-canon verse. Like, Dean and Cass work at a coffee shop, not like AU where Jack is actually a baby, but it's still canon verse and Castiel's still an angel. To me, that's not AU.
That's not AU.
Right. Technically
AU
it is
alternate universe.
right.
Universe.
Right. But the AUs within canon, those are cool to me and I like those. But for this ship, I prefer canon verse.
I do, because AUs don't really make sense. You can't really take them out of their...
Right, then they're just guys.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, I don't really like Twist and Shout. Did you ever read Twist and Shout? It's like 60s AU, and they get drafted in the war, and then have PTSD and die.
Was that based off of that one episode?
Was it? I didn't think it was based off of anything from the show. It had nothing to do with the show. It had nothing to do with Supernatural. And I was reading it. It was the first fic I ever read in my whole entire life.
Oh.
And I was just so confused. I was like, why would you write a fic? Like, their story is so interesting. Their dynamic is so interesting. And you're just removing all of that. To be fair, it was, like, really, really, really good. And, like, the writing was really, really, really good. But I'm like, why not just make these anyone other than Dean and Destiel? And then I cried, definitely. And I think it was actually also the very first time I ever cried reading anything. I was like, I didn't know you could cry. What the hell? I was 12, by the way. I was 12 years old.
Okay.
Oh,
wow. Okay. Sorry,
definitely. This is one of the things that I definitely knew I shouldn't have been reading. But So Says the Sword became famous later, in like 2020.
Yeah.
And have you finished it yet?
I don't think so.
I'm putting whether or not the ships are canon. Most of them are not going to be, but they're canon if you watch the Spanish dub. Which is crazy. They're actually really, really hard to talk about because they go through like 800 phases of their relationship over the course of 10 years and 12 seasons. So even if I only hit the main points, I'd be standing here talking for an hour. But basically, Dean is like vulgar and a bitch and nobody likes him. But like Castiel still learns to love that, which I'm just like, wow, that's amazing. That's so beautiful. That's also what they were trying to convey in the episode where he confessed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he says like, I loved the whole world because of you. And he's like, you think you're fucked up, but I actually really think that's cool.
That's cute.
It is cute, but there was just so many distractions in that episode. Mind you, every time he would say a line, there would be like a fine boom sound effect. He'd be like, I love you, boom.
But I cared about the whole world because of you.
And then, like, his face was all messed up because he was, like, crying and sobbing and, like, acting his little heart out. And I just felt so, like you can't focus on what he's saying. The writing itself was not terrible. It was everything else. And then, like, the season 8 plotline to me is most interesting when Cass is fighting back layers of lobotomization to save Dean.
I do remember that.
That was so good. And then on Dean's end, like, his whole thing is like, you can't trust anyone. Monsters are terrible. They killed our mom. We got to kill all the monsters. But then suddenly, like, Castiel is becoming very close to him. And then there's also little moments where, like, Dean will see how hard Castiel is trying, even when he's, like, doing evil stuff. And he's like, oh, but you're my guy, you know? Like, you're my Pookie. Like, it'd be like that. Like, he immediately just a little guys him. Which is also perfect because Castiel's, like, angel of the Lord. Like, he's from the Bible. Like, he's literally in the Bible, and now he's, like, besties with this, just a guy. It was such a good era. And including in 2020 also. Not just the 2014, 2016 era. The, what's the word? Renaissance. Destiel Renaissance of 2020. Yeah. I think was maybe even more fun than this. This is going to be the only ship on this list that's like that. Everything else died out. Destiel will live on. 100,000 fics and counting. Okay, next we got...
This is my ship.
Really?
I adore Merthur.
I adore
Merlin, the TV show. I adore Merthur. I love every single Merthur fic I've read. I think they are peak. This is my peak.
Wow.
I love Merthur.
Explain why. Explain.
But like, I don't know, something about their dynamic and everything just they warm my heart. They really do. I just love Merthur.
Period. So I read the fics.
I just love fantasy.
I love fantasy. That's why I call it European Donme. I kind of rated the fics low because, like you said, like a lot of it was very cutesy and rom-commy, and like I don't love that. Like to me that's boring because I'm toxic. I think the fics were pretty good.
I've read so many canon-verse different takes of the series.
2016. Like I watched the series in college. The whole entire time, like you can read our text. I was like, oh my god, I'm so excited for Arthur to learn he has magic. And then like I was thinking there to be at least a season of like the repercussions of that. And then it was the last episode. I was so mad. I was like, why didn't I just... Right, because that's fucking stupid. It was so stupid. I'm like, oh my god, it's going to be so interesting. It's going to be such a status quo change. Also, I thought Gaius was going to die every episode. I was like, when is he going to die? Holy shit. How is he still hanging in there? He is so old. The wig is crusty. Let this man die. Like, the show has it just has such good vibes. It's like going to the Renaissance Fair every day. Like, it's so good. That's why I'm calling it, like, it's the Shenxia of America. Or America, the fuck. It's the Shenxia of Europe. Oh, it wasn't canon, obviously. But I actually don't think the creators hated us.
No, they didn't.
Right, like, they were kind of cool with us, which is
the actors
anomaly.
The
right.
actors, too, were, like, playing to it.
Right, but not really in a queerbaity way, in my opinion.
No.
Right, like Destiel, the creators fucking hated us. Except for Misha Collins, the actors hated us and thought we were so weird. But with them, it was like...
They loved us.
Yeah, they're like, okay,
they
cool.
They literally loved us. Morgana's actor is...
Oh my god, I
love her.
So,
I love this show.
I know, but they would be stupid not to agree with us because magic is a metaphor for queerness. We all know this. There's no other reading of the show. Like, there's really not. He did die then, which was kind of crazy.
He did fucking die! Oh, that makes me cry every time I watch it.
That's the other crazy thing, is that their relationship goes through no developments until the second he dies. Like, I'm like, wow, I'm so excited for them to, like, become closer, and then he's gonna learn about his magic, and he's gonna change as a person and legalize magic, right?
Because the fanfiction gives us that progression.
Yeah, I don't know why the writers wouldn't do that. That seemed like such a, and this is a Klance buzzword that we're gonna talk about later, such a natural progression of the characters. And the fact that they just didn't do it, and they didn't have him change as a person and become less of an asshole, and like...
There was a bit of development in
right.
the beginning, and then it stagnated, and then it's the last episode. Which has all of the development in like 40 minutes.
Not even!
In like the last 10 minutes where he dies.
Like, on his deathbed, he's like, wait, I kind of feel like maybe I should have been a better person this whole time, and Merlin's like, okay, this is unhelpful! The fact that he dies at the end, once again, sad, very sad. We can't have anything happiness. But overall, they are like the most enjoyable experience of any ships on this list. I actually didn't watch the show, but I have to include it because... Did you watch the show?
I watched like the first half of the first season because I wanted to watch the show, but my stupid Paramount Plus subscription, like, I didn't have enough time to watch the show and justify paying like $12 for it, so I couldn't keep watching it.
Did you see them at all?
No, but I thought it was weird because he's like a decade older or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, he's like a good like 7 or 8 years older, I think.
But it's called Teen Wolf. Is he not a teen?
No, he's like an alpha wolf that lives in the woods and graduated like years ago, yeah.
So it's
or like, something, he's like from a different back, but he's like
super senior wolf. Adult wolf.
Like pushing 30 wolf.
Well,
yeah,
I don't know anything about that.
I don't know anything about them either. But apparently, yeah, like
apparently they
really
queerbaited like crazy.
Shit.
Yeah, and apparently like the queerbaiting was actually insane, and like they would not stop like in real life, and they hated their fans that shipped them, but they were also queerbaiting. I saw the clips of the actors queerbaiting and being like, if you give us the money, we'll kiss on the mouth. Like
really?
That vibe, right? But obviously they weren't canon, obviously. And the creators hated y'all. So not me, that I'm kidding. If I had watched the show, I probably would have been into it.
If I watched the show in that era.
Right, like if I was in the trenches with them, like
if
I can't.
If was less developed.
Right, I can't act all above it all because I mean I was
Klance
inches
era,
away.
if I was watching this during Klance era, I definitely would.
And I would be watching this. This is the type of show I would watch. So I can't act different. Hannigram was also this era.
I didn't get to Hannibal.
I did watch it. I actually watched every single episode. I thought it was too uppity for me. I thought it was too prestigious. And I was like, why am I watching this? This is boring. And like, I don't watch this kind of stuff. I don't really see the vision. I thought the show was boring, and I thought if they did it, it would continue to be boring.
Yeah. It didn't add anything.
But this is another anomaly in which the creators and actors were actually supportive of the shippers. Yeah. I think there's still a gap in the market of gay cannibals.
Gay cannibals, I think, would be...
the time is now.
The time is now.
Like...
when everyone's freely open about being freaky.
Right. Okay.
Yeah! Yeah!
Here we go! They're actually...
I love them so much. I love them so much!
It's actually insane.
Oh, this was like number 2 after Klance for me.
After Klance, please.
This was like the same era as Klance for me. This was everything to me.
And like, you'll notice, this is the only one where I rated 5 stars for
Because
Figs.
like there's so much variety.
I know!
About like them in the younger and then in the older and then finding an angst. So much
And
angst.
it's like they were writing period pieces, and they would actually have the characters talk like they were from the 30s.
It's so
Which,
fucking
mind
good.
you, the movies did not do. They had them talk normally, except they would say "dame" instead of "woman," and we're supposed to be like all impressed. They would just be so creative, and I love reading them because I love it when people talk like, oh well, you're a scrawny little thing. Like I'm like, oh, this is great, and they're gay. This is great.
Now this was peak. This was
This
peak.
was so, and that's the other thing is that another anomaly because this is like one of the only ships on this list where the original content is also really, 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 really good.
Like the Captain America
Trilogy.
Well, honestly, I don't really like Civil War all that
Me
much.
neither!
But like the first 2 Captain America movies,
I know. I could literally rewatch those movies every day for the rest of my life, and I wouldn't get bored. And this is perfect because it was literally 2014, 2016, like
peak,
Winter Soldier, Civil War.
peak,
Exactly.
peak Yowie, peak Yowie time.
Like actually peak Yowie, which is crazy because they totally shot themselves in the foot here because they did hate us. Anthony Mackie fucking hates our guts, right?
Really?
Oh yeah. He's like, why can't guys just be friends? They can't actually. No guys can be friends. They all have to be in love. By the way.
I didn't know that.
Anthony Mackie would hate me personally so much. Yeah, those fics, they win the fic off. I would say the only ship with better fics than them is you. Like, I don't think I've read a bad Stucky fic where I'm like, that was boring.
True.
Like, I've never clicked off a Stucky fic. I've always been like, wow, these people are so fucking smart. But to be fair, I do sort by kudos. I think if I sorted by kudos descending, maybe I would find some bad ones.
But the fact that there's so many good kudos ones, because even in other ones you sort by kudos and you get to one and you're like, why does this have so many kudos? They don't have that.
Exactly. And because the writers, not only did they do the period piece stuff, but they would be so smart. Like with the modern era ones, and they would always like incorporate like spy stuff. And I'd be like, oh my god, is this person actually a spy? Holy shit, what's going on? Like, how do they know so much about this?
In the future, in the modern era, he's literally part of like the USSR.
Right.
He's literally a killing murder machine. Obviously, Captain America doesn't want to publicize their relationship, so they always have to like sneak around and stuff.
But imagine living in that world, and then like there's a rumor that Captain America is hooking up with a guy that bombed the UN.
Hot.
I know.
Hot.
That would be so lit. The only problem with Stucky is that in the comics, it's actually like there's a crazy age difference, and they're not like that at all. But that doesn't ruin my fun.
Yeah.
Because the MCU is the MCU, it's totally different.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody knew who the fuck Bucky Barnes was before the MCU. But they're like Batman and Robin in the comics, and like Bucky's like little. I know. The fuck.
Bombastic side-eyed.
I just have to talk about their dynamic. It interests me to no end because like Steve Rogers is quite literally America's hero, but Bucky is Steve's hero. We only get like 2 scenes of Steve and Bucky's dynamic before Steve becomes big and strong, but you still buy the relationship because you see the way that Bucky treats Steve compared to the way everyone else treats him in 1943. You immediately understand what their relationship has been like for the past 10 years or so because you feel like you know them so well just from the few scenes you saw because it's like good writing. Like, oh my god, imagine MCU having good writing. Crazy to say now. Crazy. And a lot of fics, like we were talking about, are set before the first Captain America movie because there's just like, there's so much history there. It's really great and really interesting. And that's why I'll never buy into the Peggy and Steve relationship because
Fuck
she
Peggy.
liked him when he was little, but then when he becomes big and strong, Chris Evans, suddenly she's super interested in him and attracted to him, which she was not before. Which
that plotline. I hated that.
I agree. And it's, to me, like as a woman, it's kind of gross because this is not how women are, but that's how men think women are. And this was written by a man. Clearly, men have this crazy idea that like a woman will like me if I go to the gym more or grow a few inches taller or have a more chiseled jawline. But that is literally not the case. If she didn't like you when you were skinny, she's not going to like you when you're buff. Other men will respect you more if you have those things. But women focus on personality and like, you know, their face, which Chris Evans had the Chris Evans face when he was skinny. And guess the fuck what? Bucky liked him when he was skinny.
True.
Like Bucky, like he did a lot for him, obviously, when everyone was treating him like shit. So Steve's intense loyalty to him later makes sense because he probably felt like he owed him for all those years. But then, of course, the dynamic shifts, like I said, when he becomes the big hero. And now he actually has the power to pay Bucky back for everything he's done for him. But obviously, in the future, everyone's confused. Like, why are you doing so much for the guy that literally killed JFK and, you know, Iron Man's parents and Black Panther's dad?
Forgot about that.
Yeah, it doesn't feel out of character when Steve forsakes the Avengers and becomes a fugitive for Bucky because, like, at that point, how could he not? It's so romantic. It's so Long Wang Ji. But yeah, unfortunately, they did hate us. like a lot. Which is crazy because you did it to yourselves. Like, he was fucking Robin in the comics, and then you made him hot Sebastian Stan, and you made them the same age.
You decided to make him Sebastian Stan.
That's literally your fault.
Quite literally, look at that. Look
I know.
at them in that
And they look
screenshot.
so good together. Anyway, they're crazy. Love them. Crazy. Go, please. But you were definitely more into them than I was, so I will give you the floor.
See, look, in this, like, when I was watching it was definitely when I had rose-colored glasses on, so I shipped them to high hell, okay?
Why?
Like, Sherlock just cared so much about John in the later, but, like, he was so shit at showing it because he's Sherlock. And so, like, it made for a really interesting dynamic where, like, John was always worried and Sherlock would just, like, reassure him in his own way. Honestly, I don't know what I saw in them because I rewatched the series and I'm like, what the fuck was I on? But all I know is that when I was watching it, like, in, like, 2016, 2018, I was on the Johnlock ship. I was on there. But also I just loved the series and I loved the mystery and I love Sherlock.
I specifically remember liking the first episode and then thinking every other episode was bad, and now every time I charge my phone, I think of them.
Right! Every time I miss the phone charger, I'm like, no!
No, Sherlock would think I'm an alcoholic.
I swear!
But yeah, I didn't read any of the fics. Did you read the fics?
Yeah.
Were they good?
I don't remember.
Okay, so probably not.
I feel like I've read some good ones because I wouldn't love them as much as if I didn't. It was a lot of character studies.
Okay, that's fun.
Which I enjoy.
Yeah, obviously not canon, and they hated y'all.
They really did. They really, like, I remember that specifically, that they fucking hated it.
Next! Why?
Because one of my core memories is a Drarry fic. Because I bet
their fics are good though.
It's like
I liked Carry On by Rainbow Wow. I'm like actually not a Drarry hater, like, because they really are the blueprint. Like, they're the enemies to lovers. Like, it's their whole thing. And like, I definitely saw the vision, and I still see the vision. Like, I get it. Like, I get the whole vibe, and I'm glad that it exists. And you know, like that whole thing in book 6 where he's like obsessed with him. Like, I think that's cool and fun and great.
Yeah.
But once again, J.K. Rowling hated y'all. What's next? Did you get into this one?
A little bit, like a tiny little itty bitty bit. Like, I've read a few of them and they were fun and like angsty, but I only went through like the first 3 or 4 pages of A3.
It's like, fuck y'all to Disney, because like I'm actually very chill about them. Like I said, like it doesn't make me froth at the mouth the way Stucky does, but it does still kind of piss me off. Where I'm like, it could have been good. It could have saved the sequel trilogy, but the sequel trilogy, I guess, was always destined to be ass. And yeah, so Force Awakens was in 2015, and then Last Jedi came out in 2017, and like totally killed all the vibes. Like everything was just no longer fun for the sequel trilogy. And I was like, oh, okay, never mind. It was just, that's where the infighting started. Like The Last Jedi actually is what ruined fandom, in my opinion. And like that's like the infighting because of that, and then it transferred to like every other fandom, and it was just like it's just an awful era of the internet, and that movie was just like I can't even say that the movie itself was bad. It was just so stupid what they did that like they had to know they were gonna piss everyone off. Like, I don't know. I feel like if I watched it now, I wouldn't be as upset as I was back then. But like, and not just because of Finnpoe. Like Finnpoe, yeah, they would have been really cute, and people would have been happy about it. And the ship was cute. The actors had a good chemistry. There was like a fun dynamic. It was something we hadn't seen in Star Wars before. And I definitely read some fics back in the day, but I have zero memory of them. All I remember is that they were kind of cutesy. I know you said they were angsty, but the fics I read were pretty cutesy. And now, like, I would never read any Finnpoe fics now because I'm literally choosing to pretend, like, I'm literally ignoring the fact that the Star Wars sequels ever existed.
Yeah.
So, like, it would be painful to me to read Finnpoe fics nowadays. And even after The Last Jedi, like, the only time I ever read Finnpoe fics was in the 2-year span after The Force Awakens came out and before The Last Jedi came out. It was just sad, honestly. Not sad, just disappointing. Did you ever watch these movies?
Not until I watched them with you.
Oh, yeah!
But I get it. I still get it.
Yeah.
I still get it.
Like, I put them on self-indulgently. They weren't nearly as big as the other ships we talked about. But, like, you would see them around, and there were people that were like, what y'all are shipping Professor X and Magneto. What's going on? Like, and I think that's really fun.
But you haven't seen when they were younger.
Right. But also, but you have to remember that they were also gay when they were old.
They were also gay when they were old.
And also, they're besties. I think that's so cute.
It is!
Like, and old Magneto and Charles are besties.
Also besties.
Oh my god. Oh, adorable. They do also have the Stucky vibes because it's like a period piece. It was in the 60s. And then also it's fun when they're old men.
Yeah.
Like it's great. Like, and then they have like that really funny dynamic that like people are always making fun of, where it's like, we're mortal enemies, but we still play chess all the time. Like, I just think that's so fun. Like, you gotta have that in your superhero stories. This is the only one I rated 1 star, because
there aren't that many fics.
there's not that many, and none of them are good, which blows my mind, because I feel like they're so interesting, and they have such an interesting dynamic, and they're like these legacy characters that have been around for a really long time.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much potential there. And, like, I've never read a good one. And they weren't canon. Like, they're one of the ships that, like, Stucky, like, they couldn't have been canon. Because, like, you can't make a movie and just randomly have Charles and Magneto date. Like, that's weird. But I don't think the creators hated us. Michael Fassbender, there's, like, an interview where they're, like, showing him a Cherik fan art. And, like, he's, like, obviously, like, it's weird that they're showing him the fan art in the interview because it's, like, very explicit fan art.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't choose, like, the cutesy fan art that I put in the slide. Like, they chose the explicit stuff. But he's still, like, he's still not being weird about it.
Uh-huh.
He's still, like, oh, it's crazy. Like, that's so fun. Like, okay. And, like, which is crazy because, like, the interviewer obviously wanted him to have, like, a really strong reaction. Like, ew, what are y'all doing? But he was, like,
y'all like show?
yeah, he's, like, a cool guy. He's European. Mm-hmm. This is also, once again, one of the self-indulgent ones that's actually not as popular as the other ones. But I feel like I have to mention it because it's very representative of the era. Overwatch came out in 2016. You don't know them?
I've heard of this.
They don't talk ever in canon, like, period. This is just one of the, like, this was just a moment.
This is just self-indulgent for them.
Right. It's kind of like a Marauders situation where
Yeah.
they're like, we want there to be a yaoi ship, so, like, these two. Bam.
Mm-hmm.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, like, the fics were, like, really good.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they have official lore, but it's not fleshed out at all. So it was kind of like a sandbox situation for the fic authors. Okay, RPF Lightning Round. Really? What the hell? Girl, who?
Larry.
Really?
Larry. What the
Have you talked to Victoria about this?
No, but
She
me and my
loves
sister,
Larry.
Me and my sister, our connecting point was Larry.
Really? I had no idea.
I was a huge directioner.
Really?
How do I describe it? There's just, they're dynamic, and like the old clips that you would see when they were just like guys being guys, but it's inexplicably gay. And they were both like artsy artists and stuff like that. And they were just guys growing up in the public sphere. So like, and they weren't really media trained, so they would just do whatever. And like the clips that you would find and stuff like that. And it was just, there was like an extra layer to their relationship that you wouldn't see in any of the other parents in the group. I don't think I really read any Drarry fics because that was like, I wasn't okay with reading about real people. But I definitely, in my heart of hearts, shipped them.
Okay.
Because my sister was reading Drarry fics. Not Drarry, Larry fics. But I wouldn't shame her for it. Like she shamed me for everything else. Because I'm the better person.
Victoria read Larry fics, and she said they were informative. She said they were really good.
I was 11. But I was still living in France, so I didn't have any of, like, the... fan fiction wasn't a thing in my Catholic private school.
Right. Interesting.
Dan and Phil, I wasn't there during their peak. I never read any fics, but, like, when I started watching the videos in, like, 2018 when my friend showed me them, I definitely shipped them.
Well, they're dating, so you were right.
We were all right.
They seem cool.
I love them.
Like,
they're so quirky and British.
It's for real. I feel like they don't have that many fics though, because I don't know. Like, I know people that watch Dan and Phil and were like fans, PH fans. They never read the fics. Like, I feel like it wasn't really as part of the culture.
It wasn't a fic thing. It
right.
was like you watch their content and you're like, oh, they're dating. It's like how people watch Smosh and thought like Shane and Courtney were dating before they released it.
Right.
It was like, I don't think there are any Shane and Courtney fics, but you would just watch the channel and see their dynamic and you'd be like, there's something going on there.
Right. Okay. So it was probably more like fan art than...
Yes.
Okay. And then we got...
I never understood that.
Me neither, because they seem so fake to me. Like, even, like, I went to one of the cons and like, watching them on stage, I was like, these bitches hate each other in real life. Like, I just knew it. Because they act so fake. They act like they're both doing separate stand-up routines and they're trying to get theirs done before the other person can start talking. I was 14 years old at this con. I have a picture of me and Jared Padalecki and Jen Snackles to prove it. Okay.
My man, my ship, my everything.
To me, this is like the end game. Like how people say the movie Endgame is good, but what it did to the universe ruined all movies going forward. Like, this ship was good, but because of this ship, we couldn't have any good ships after. Even though, me personally, I think the movie Endgame is bad, and I've always thought it was very bad, and I've always hated it. But, like, Klance is different, because Klance is, like,
It's the one that got away.
It's the one.
It's the one that could have been.
They're all the ones that could have been. Every single one of them.
No.
Yes.
No. Klance had so much potential to be a good. I think would it have killed the show if they were actually canon? Yeah, but I think they could have done so much more with the ship. They could have dragged it on a bit longer, but it was shit. It was shit. Once it started going to shit, the ship was shit, and then they had a Lawrence the thing. They gave a random stupid ass man to Shiro
Holy
when
shit.
he clearly should have ended up with Allura.
Oh my god.
Shimura was like everything to me. It was
Me
like
too.
one of the
The
only
things
straight
that were
ships that I
Klance and
shipped.
Allura. Oh. The people that were there for the Adam fiasco, holy shit, that was the weirdest 2 weeks of my life.
But I remember. But oh my god, they could have been everything. The show could have been so good.
Like, there were about 4 seasons straight where every single time, like, the season ended, I would think, oh, well, that one was just a dud. The next season, they'll get back on track. They can't all be good. The next season, we'll get back on track.
I was
And it never
watching
did.
this entire series with colored glasses on, and also the ship, while the ship was everything to me, and I would get so sad every time the ship would become less and less. But, like, the story as a whole, I watch it now, and I'm like, this is...
I think you're right. That, like, this is, like, the main one on this list that's, like,
It really could have
they really could have done it, and they like, just
fucked
chose
it.
not to.
They fucked it in the ass with the chainsaw. It was so bad. This show broke my heart. This was, like,
Right.
my first heartbreak.
Like, Klance, like, there will never be anything that matches the highs of Klance, but there will also never be anything that matches the low of Klance.
I not only hated the Lawrence because it was getting rid of Klance, but also because it was just
It was
so
also
last
gross.
minute.
Yeah, it was
so forced. Like, even me with my rose-colored glasses on knew that the Lawrence was forced. Like, nothing will take away the fact that they forced them together in the last season because some dumbass bitch was like, we have to have this shit.
Lauren Montgomery. She is so weird. So it was just that every single fucking decision they made in those last few seasons just
ass
confused me to no end. Like, what are we thinking? What
the fuck?
Like, there was one smart person on the writers team. It was Tim Hedricks, and he left in season 6.
And then everything went to
And then everything became very bad.
And, like, if you make a remake now, it won't fix anything.
It wouldn't be the same.
It wouldn't be the same because it wouldn't have...
It had the sauce.
It wouldn't have, like, that feeling.
They had the perfect setup. And
they really did!
Like,
and they fucked it!
The reason that the setup was so perfect is because you could tell it was unintentional. But also, there was that little light in you that was thinking, well, maybe they're just galaxy-brained, and they're doing all this because they actually are leading up to Klance. They did say, like, oh yeah, this is kind of the natural progression, that they would hate each other and then become friends and then date. Ha, that's so silly, but then they didn't do it.
And it's like the slow burn. It's the slow burn
It's like,
of them being rivals. And, like, Lance's POV, and then Keith was, like, so indifferent, but then Keith actually started to hate him. And it was so good! I agree.
This will haunt the narrative of my life.
Haunt me till the day I die.
Exactly.
It will haunt me till the day I die.
But, like, watching this go down in real time, it was like watching an explosion in slow motion.
This was the only... Who would I have been if I never had Klance? I think this show fundamentally changed me as a person. This was a turning point in, like, who I would become.
There will never be another Klance.
No, there won't. They really, like, don't... Because this was so specific to the time. This era will never happen again. Of, like, fan fiction and, like, the...
Yeah, so let's talk about...
Let's
talk about the fics. So, I rated them pretty good because, like I said, like we've been talking about, they're a very...
Formative fics.
Like, really iconic fics. There was Please Drink Responsibly, there was Ice Skating, Dance.
On Thin Ice, Shut Up and Dance With Me.
The Cat Cafe one.
The Cat Cafe one. There's so many good ones because we had so much to work with.
We had so much
to work with. And we had so much hope.
And we were so angry. And, like, it was, if you're going to write a fic about anything, you're going to write about Klance because you're like, holy shit. Like, it was right there. It was right there. It's right there. And so, like, and the show was so bad that you just felt like whatever I write cannot possibly be worse than the show. Dirty Laundry was famous. I personally, like, I thought it was fine, but, like, I didn't think it was, it is good, but it's not their best.
Mm-hmm.
And then that says Like Kira, which was just, like, a, like, crash out of the fandom.
I remember.
But it was fun.
I love
Like
avid
Kira.
Leo and Akira reader.
Right.
I loved those things.
It was really cool. It was
good AU.
It was
good AU.
I agree.
We'll never have this again. And this is getting erased. It's getting erased to a newer generation.
Yeah, it's vanishing.
They'll never know Klance. But there has been a Klance renaissance recently.
There's a Klance renaissance every 3 months. But, like, the fact that it actually is vanishing off of the face of the earth and it's going to become lost media, they could have had it all.
They could have had it all. There was so much hope. There was so much potential. There was so much hope. It was something that could actually happen. Destiel was never gonna actually happen. Johnlock was never gonna actually happen. Merthur was never gonna actually happen because they were like that progressive time. Klance was happening during the progressive like revolution.
Right, like
of
Love
the
Simon
late
had come
2000
out.
teens and like the early. It could have happened. Like there was so much hope.
And they just didn't. They simply decided not to. I will never get over it. Okay.
I need to breathe.
Next.
I'm getting lightheaded.
Well, luckily we're now talking about Victuri.
They
Which
saved me.
they
really did.
like post Klance, like they like took me into their
Flocked.
arms.
Flocked at them. Everyone flocked to Yuri on Ice.
And it was canon. The creators loved us. Like they were always like, no, they are dating. They are dating.
I never had to read fics for this because I had the series.
I never read a fic.
Fics.
No,
but you
never.
didn't have to.
I didn't
because
even
it
put-
was the series. The series
Right.
was the fic.
The fics aren't getting better than the series. That's why
Yeah.
So like 2016 really was the shift. It was SOTUS. It was like Love Simon. It was this show.
Exactly.
Corporations noticed, you know? It wasn't just like, it was a result of the 2014 ships.
Yes.
It was a result of Destiel, of
and
Johnlock,
like Love
of Merthur.
Simon and stuff like that was a huge help in like getting it to the mainstream.
Mm-hmm. Like, because of the work that we had put in 2014, this is the payoff.
Exactly.
Is that people were like, oh, people would actually watch these shows. People would watch BL. And then, like, because of this era, like, why are we bothering with queer baits if we can actually have real ships? It went from, like, we would see the potential for an epic, amazing love story in some mainstream media and then have an interpretation that they were gay. But after You on Ice, it was like, well, why can't they just be gay? And, like, I say interpretation with quotation marks because most of these were not interpretations. We knew the creators didn't actually intend for these characters to be in love, except Klance. We knew they hated us. We knew they weren't going to actually have the characters end up together. Interpretation was just the word that creators would use when talking about the yaoi community when they didn't want to completely alienate that corner of the market, but didn't want to, like, validate us either. And it, like, was a polite and civil way of discussing it, but, like,
It was, I remember.
you know, you could tell that there was homophobia behind the eyes when they would say, like, yeah, I've seen some fans have that interpretation, but it's been a decade, and I've thoroughly proved I was in the trenches back then. So I can say this now. It was never an interpretation. We were just making shit up to make these stories more interesting and more fun. We know the creators didn't actually sneak hints into the first Captain America movie to secretly clue us into the fact that Stucky were in love in the 30s. But doesn't it make the story so much more interesting if that is the case? We knew that random Black Watch members, McCree and Hanzo, weren't together in canon. But doesn't that add such an interesting layer to the bare bones Overwatch lore? Wouldn't it have been great if over the course of the sequel trilogy, we got to watch Finn, an ex-stormtrooper, and Poe, a hotshot rebel pilot, fall in love? Like, they were canon in You're on Ice, and, like, I was there for, like, Kissgate. But, like, watching it now, anyone would be like, well, yeah, they're kissing. Because it's now 2024. It's been almost 10 years. And the show was also good, which is nice. And, like, it was so short,
good.
and it was interesting, and it was
It's
good.
a fun watch. It's an easy watch. It's a
Right.
quick watch.
It was just like the perfect,
It's perfect.
the perfect rehab.
Perfect.
Right. So are things better now? Yeah, but it's a little bit less fun.
It's not life-changing. It's not incredible.
So I'm using these examples of, like, canon BL, and, like, I mean, there's a whole argument where, like, oh, if it's white people, it's not BL, which is fucking stupid. Like, what is the
That's
difference
dumb.
between Heartstopper and Semantic Error? How is Young Royals not BL, but not me is? They're both prestigious. Because people are fucking racist, and they think if it's Asian, it's, like, weird and fetishy, but it's, like, 90% of the time that is not the case.
Mm-hmm.
With these shows, like, they were canon and they were intentionally canon and blah, blah, blah. And it just feels less real to me. Like, shipping the characters just doesn't have the same bite because, like, back then, it would be, like, kind of like they were breaking out of the narrative. And the characters were falling in love regardless of what the writers wanted them to do. It's like they're real people.
That's, for me, ships, like, if it's canon, then it still is a ship. But, like...
But it's like, we're just doing what the creators want us to do.
Exactly.
Which is boring.
And it's following
the narrative.
Especially
to
when
a
it's
T.
gay.
So that's why, like, the fic numbers are so very low. Like, Heartstopper was huge. And there's only 7,000 fics about
You
it.
don't need to write a fic.
And so, yeah, we kind of just talked about this, but some other reasons why it's not like this anymore is that no one watches the same thing anymore. Like, I have not even heard of the ships on, like, the top 10 AO3 this year. Back in the day, like, it was still, like, people were watching what they wanted to watch and branching out, but there was a little bit more of a monoculture.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays, it's like, you could meet 10 people and none of them would have watched the same shows. Because one of them is only watching anime, one of them only watches K-dramas, one of them only watches American Lifetime movies. One of them only watches YouTube web shows. Everyone has their own little bubble and no one is interacting with each other.
Everything is so niche.
Everything is so niche.
Everyone has a niche.
Yeah, because of the algorithms and because there's so much content these days. Another reason, trauma. because of what happened with all the other ships. I mean, we didn't even really get into the whole Johnlock trauma, but I heard it was bad. No one wants to go through that again. And so you feel like betrayed. You're like, especially with like Johnlock and Klance and Stucky, you're kind of like embarrassed for even getting invested in the first place.
Yeah.
Because the creators were so bitchy about it until the end. And then the other reason is like there's actual canon LGBT content now, so people don't have to make stuff up. So that's why there's less fics. In conclusion, thank you for all the stands back in the day who do fan art, wrote fics, wrote analysis, or participated in pre-BL era BL fandom in any way. You are God's strongest soldiers.
I am so privileged to have been able to live through the dying era of it. So I still got to experience that, and I still was close enough to the golden age where like people were still passionate. I'm very glad that I was there for like the fan fiction and the fan art of Stucky. Because every time a new Marvel movie would come out,
I'd be like, I can't wait to see Stucky, right?
No, that was me.
It would be like fucking Iron Man 20. And I'd be like, ooh, I wonder if Stucky's gonna be
Exactly. No, that was me.
Do you want to pick a winner, a ship winner? I pick Stucky. I think Stucky has aged the best and was the least traumatizing, even though it was traumatizing. And the fics are the best, especially the fics written before Civil War came out. And they're the easiest to go back and rewatch and get into again whenever you want. Because you can just rewatch the first 2 Captain America movies and Civil War if you're feeling freaky.
I don't think I have a winner because we're all losers.
It's just it is sad to me that it will never be like this again, and that like it would have been probably the best thing that could have ever happened in the world if just one of these had truly happened.
Except Destiel.
Destiel, but if they had done Destiel well, it would have been good.
Some ships are better because they are not canon.
Yes, I agree.
Because it is pre-rating.
Right.
So I guess my win is Merthur because it wouldn't have changed the essence of the show if they became canon. They were the most likely to become canon. Other than
Klance. Jesus! I can't even think about it anymore. Let's end this now.
What happened to me? 많은 사람 속 너만 보여. 활짝 걷는 네 눈이 문득 마주쳐 피어나는 flash.